Field Commander Napoleon by DVG offers the ability to recreate the major campaigns of Napoleon, starting with his adventures in Italy and ending at Waterloo. What follows is an introduction and turn sequence, followed by a more detailed breakdown of how the game plays. The first step is to advance the turn marker, save for the first turn. Now, you can move any or all mobile French forces to areas that are adjacent to their location, except for forces that are sharing an area with enemy forces as they are pinned. But Napoleon may move to another location even if enemy forces are present in his location. Just be sure to move them either with or into locations where French forces are present. Otherwise, you lose the campaign immediately. Next, you may resolve battles in all areas that contain forces from both sides. Now, you may force march any or all French forces into adjacent areas and resolve new battles. The movement rules still apply, but you must pay 1 supply point per force counter that is moved. You receive points as per the campaign scenario. If you spend 2 supply points, you may flip a reduced force to full strength. You may purchase new forces by paying the combat value of the counter. It's possible to pay for reduced forces, but you cannot immediately refit them during the resupply phase. Once purchased, place them in areas containing French forces. Scouts may be purchased at the cost of 2 supply for each movement. Enemy forces in the same area as French forces cannot move. Separate enemy forces into groups according to their nationality, but treat recruits as a separate nation. Next, randomly split each nationality pile into subgroups, the group size according to the order table. Spend supply points to determine modifiers for the order rolls, a single D10 for each force group to carry out orders. You may roll in any order. Add the appropriate modifiers. Keep in mind that scouts can be spent for re-rolling the die without enemy modifiers. Treat all rolls as simultaneous regarding area control at the start of the enemy turn, but complete each move before rolling for the next order. Resolve all battles in areas that contain forces from both sides. Using the chart on the campaign map, you may randomly draw for enemy reinforcements. Receive 2 supply points for each force that's not available, and you must refit forces that are reduced by paying 2 supply points and flipping them to their full strength side, starting with the lowest to highest skill level. And that ends the turn. What follows are 6 separate videos that cover the rules of Field Commander Napoleon in greater detail, including a game example as found in the rule book. Along the shoreline of Ajaccio, Corsica, a young Napoleon de Bonaparte played alongside his first true friend, the ocean. Soon to leave for France, Napoleon gazed over the waves and wondered where his life would take him. Field Commander Napoleon is a solitaire game where you become Napoleon Bonaparte on his most famous campaigns. You can play a single campaign or relive Napoleon's career from the Italian campaign of 1796 through 1815, where he met his Waterloo. Over the course of 6 videos, you will learn to play the basics of Field Commander Napoleon. While not all the nuances will be covered, the goal of this video series is to provide a basic understanding of how the game works. In the game, you take the role of Napoleon and lead the French forces in a series of campaigns. Each campaign map will denote your setup, special rules, and goals for winning. In addition, the map is divided into areas that your forces control if no enemy units occupy them. Remember that your forces do not float, so you cannot move them into the water. The victory conditions of many campaigns will be based on capturing and holding objective markers that are set up in pre-designated locations, while some of the campaigns being decided by special rules that are listed for each battle. When you meet either victory or defeat condition, the campaign will end immediately. If Napoleon is on the battlefield sheet or map without French forces, you lose immediately. You will also lose if the campaign track marker moves past the last box. You will earn victory points based on whether you did better, as well or not quite as well as Napoleon did in the historic campaign. In Field Commander Napoleon, you get 7 maps, 1 battlefield sheet, 1 help sheet, a player log, 1 die, and 6 counter sheets. There are numerous counter types that include force, supply, scouts, battle plans, types, locations, insights, objectives, and more. Force counters represent the formations of infantry, artillery, and cavalry in the game. Each force counter has their skill level medallion in the upper left corner. The quality ranges from conscripts up to elite units. The force counters include its type, commander's name, activation number, combat value, and buy cost. In addition to infantry, artillery, and cavalry, there are garrison and fortifications that cannot move during the campaign. Start by selecting the campaign. In this example, the 1796 Italian campaign is being used. Use the setup procedure as stated on the map according to instructions and follow all special rules. Put the turn marker in the start box, allocate the supply points for both sides, and place enemy battle plans in an opaque cup to be drawn later. Garrisons are placed in cities that are occupied by only one side. Only forces that match the same year as the campaign may be used. Such forces are either set up on the map or held for a later turn as indicated. All French recruits and static forces are set aside for later purchase, while enemy reinforcements are placed in a cup while enemy static forces are set aside. Place the objective counters as per campaign instructions and you are ready to begin. You stand ready to lead France. In the next video, the sequence of play and pre-battle phases will be discussed. In this video, the battle plan assignments and activations are explained, along with the advance and retreat, shock, melee combat, and performing attack rules. Both the French and enemy sides receive a battle plan every turn. The 2 types of plans are counters and default. Counters are more versatile and powerful compared to default as you can place them where they are needed, and they offer more options. Cavalry and infantry can be assigned battle plans unless stated otherwise, while cannons, fortifications, and garrisons have limitations to the battle plans they can use. Garrisons must use fire or combat battle plans if opposing enemy forces are either in or adjacent to their region location. Fortifications, French and enemy cannons, must do the same if a non-melee opposing force at range 1 or from the fortification. Otherwise, the garrison and fortification can do nothing, but the cannons may use a retreat battle plan if their forces rout. To use a battle plan, you must roll the force's activation number or less. If successful, you must carry out the instructions listed on the battle plan. If the order cannot be performed, then the next order is carried out. Remember that you do not return to skipped orders even if you can now carry them out. Your forces advance toward the enemy or they retreat toward their own reserve region. Advances and retreats can be ignored if it moves a force into a region that already contains the maximum number of forces allowed. Also, you cannot advance past the opposing reserve region. When a force enters a region containing opposing forces, a shock check is made on the opposing force that has the lowest skill level. If more than one force has the same low skill level, you can choose which one will make the shock check. Roll the force's printed combat value. If the roll is equal or less, nothing happens. But if the roll is greater, the force suffers a hit and retreats one region. If the retreating force enters a region at its maximum capacity, destroy that force instead. Remember that static forces cannot retreat. The close ranks battle plan will avoid the hit, but the force must still retreat one region. All infantry and cavalry in their approach or reserve regions automatically fail shock checks, while mobile forces in their reserve regions, which fail and must retreat, are destroyed instead. Opposing forces in the same region must initiate melee combat. Always perform the default combat battle plan when enemy forces in melee acts. Also, if the enemy force in melee has a battle plan counter, disregard it and use the combat default battle plan. French forces in melee can perform fire, pivot, prepare, formation, retreat if they are routed, or march if using a retreat move. All other battle plan counters are disregarded, and the default battle plan is used. Advance order battle plans cannot be used for forces in melee. Remember that a force in melee can retreat and have a combat value of +3 when on the attack. Forces may attack opposing forces in the same or adjacent regions. Exceptions are infantry and cavalry cannot attack from their own reserve region, while cannons and fortifications can attack from any region. If the attack roll is equal or lower than its combat value, it scores a hit on the opposing force. If the attacking force has a superscripted number and the roll is equal or less, 2 hits are scored. Cannons and fortifications cannot perform melee combat, but may attack in the closest non-melee region. Hits from cannons and fortifications strike the lowest skill level force in the region first. If all forces are eliminated, then apply the hits to the region further back. Battle plans may apply attack bonuses to the combat or superscripted combat value of a unit. If no superscripted combat value is listed, assume it is 0. Apply hits to the enemy force with the lowest skill level in the region. If 2 hits are scored, they may be against the same or different units. If no opposing force remains in melee combat and there is a hit, you can apply it to an opposing force in the adjacent region. Hits will reduce and then destroy units, which remove them from play. All destroyed French units are moved to the reinforcement pile, where they can be purchased during the supply phase. All destroyed enemy mobile forces are moved to the reinforcement cup, while destroyed garrisons and fortifications are placed back on the table for purchase. In the next video, the process of battle turns will be explained. This will provide insight into how battle plans are selected and executed in Field Commander Napoleon. In this video, the French and enemy battle turns are explained, plus the various actions that lead to the ending of a battle. When you roll Napoleon's command rating or less, you can activate an insight counter. You may attempt to activate more than one insight. Remember that insight counters that have a dash automatically activate. You do not need to roll a die. Discarding a scout counter will let you re-roll for activating an insight counter. You can discard as many scout counters as you own and then restock them during the resupply phase. You can choose battle plan counters up to the number of your battle plan quantity, but only one battle plan may be placed on a single French infantry or cavalry force unless stated otherwise on the battle plan. Attack orders are in red, while advance orders are in green. The battle plan counters for the French are as follows: charge, engage, flank, formation, grape shot, prepare, push, square, and volley. Each battle plan states what it will do when applied to the French force. The French default battle plans are denoted by the orange banner in the top left corner. All French forces that do not receive a battle plan counter may use the default battle plan or do nothing at all. The default battle plans include march, fire, pivot, and retreat. You draw as many enemy battle plans as the enemy battle plan quantity indicates. You can then assign them to one infantry and cavalry unit one at a time. Cannons, fortifications, and garrisons do not receive battle plans. The enemy battle plans include aimed, assault, closing, forward, melee, rush, wedge, and wheel. There are also special enemy battle plan counters for all enemy forces which do not count against the battle plan draw. They include close ranks, officers, and well struck. As with the French, there are enemy default battle plans for forces that did not receive any battle plan counters. They are assigned to each force depending on their range to the French forces and include advance, combat, and retreat. All enemy battle plans are resolved starting with the frontmost and proceeding to the rearmost battlefield regions. Resolve all actions for enemy forces within a region one at a time, starting with forces that have a battle plan, followed by forces that have a default battle plan. As each battle plan is resolved, return it to the battle plan cup. All enemy forces in melee combat with the French lose their battle plan and must use the combat default battle plan instead. You roll to activate and resolve French battle plans in any order you desire. For your forces that do not have a battle plan, select a default battle plan and resolve that when activated. If the French force is in melee combat with the enemy, discard whatever battle plan it is using and instead switch to a default battle plan. Start by rechecking the combat values of each side to see which one has routed. You do that by totaling up the combat values of the enemy and French forces on the battlefield sheet. If one side has at least 3 times the number of the other side routs. The side which routs loses all fortifications and garrisons, while all its mobile forces must choose the retreat battle plan until they exit the battlefield behind their reserve region. For enemy forces that retreat behind its reserve region, return their mobile forces to a randomly selected area adjacent to the battle area that is either under their control or no one's control. If such areas do not exist, then destroy that force. For French forces that voluntarily retreat, move the Napoleon counter to the same campaign map area your first forces moved to exit the battlefield. Ignore the battle turn track when one side routs. Complete the routing process turn by turn until the routed side has exited the battlefield or has been destroyed. Advance the battle turn counter and begin a new battle turn with the insight activation step. The battle ends when the following conditions are met. Only one side has forces on the battlefield, which includes routing, or when the counter is moved to the withdrawal box on the turn track. Roll on the withdrawal chart to see what happens next, which may include rejoin, enemy retreat, French retreat, or encamp. Your mobile forces may move to an area adjacent to the area it currently occupies, although you cannot enter an area with enemy forces. Pay a single supply point for each force you move. You do not have to pay to force march Napoleon, but you can force march any mobile unit for 1 supply even if they have moved earlier. Consult the resupply to see how many supply points you have available. You may refit your reduced forces and purchase scouts for 2 supply each. Or you may purchase new forces by paying their combat value, which includes reduced and destroyed forces if allowed by the rules. All new forces are placed with existing French forces. A static force remains on the campaign map for the duration of the campaign. In the next video, the enemy turn is explained to provide insight on how the opponent will combat your battle plans in Field Commander Napoleon. In this video, the rules for the enemy turn will be explained. This is followed by resolving battles and link campaigns as per the rulebook. You will find the enemy orders chart on the campaign map. It defines the movement actions of the enemy forces on the map. If the enemy forces are in the same campaign map area as the French forces, then keep them in place. Separate the enemy forces into their different nationalities. Recruits should be separated as if they were their own nation. Once separated, break apart the forces into groups as specified on the enemy orders chart. Then roll on the chart to determine each group's actions. You can choose the order in which you roll for each group. They must be moved before you roll for the next group, but treat all rolls as simultaneous. Keep in mind the modifiers that may be on the enemy orders chart, which will affect the die roll. As with the French, you can discard a scout counter to make a reroll. A reroll will not use any modifiers from the chart. You can repurchase the scouts during the resupply phase. The chart itself will contain instructions for the following: enemy-held objectives, enemy-held cities, hold, random, French-held objectives, French-held objectives 2 or 3 areas, French-held cities 2 areas, advance 1 area, advance 2 or 3 areas, and move towards. After all enemy movement is complete, you may resolve battles for each area that contains both enemy and French forces. Remember to place the battle location orange side up when moving the forces from the area to the battlefield sheet. After all battles have been resolved, go to the enemy resupply step. The enemy resupply chart offers instructions for how many new forces and supply points the enemy receives. This includes fortification, garrison, reinforcement, and supply. After the resupply rolls are completed, the enemy will refit to reduce forces on the map. Now you have completed a campaign turn, so you return to the start of the sequence of play and start the next turn. You may play each campaign as a standalone or combine them into a series of campaigns. You can start with the 1796 Italian campaign and work your way toward the end. If you lose a campaign, stop right there. but if you win, you earn victory points and can continue. Note on the player's log the force commanders that were present on the map at the end of each campaign. You may reuse the surviving counters instead of using the new ones for the next campaign. For each counter that you replace in this manner, roll on the enemy upgrade table and place the results at random in an enemy-held area. If you win all 11 campaigns, total up your victory points to see how you will be remembered. And that ends this series of videos on how to play Field Commander Napoleon. In the next video, the first campaign turn will be played out as per the rulebook. This will help you visualize how a typical campaign turn in Field Commander Napoleon works. What follows is an extended example from the Field Commander Napoleon rulebook, pages 22 and 23. It is the 1796 Italian campaign and covers the first campaign turn. The game has been set up, including the garrison and fortification counters placed in Mantua according to the special rules. With the campaign turn counter advanced, the French move 4 forces into Turin, which holds the second objective. The remainder of the mobile forces and Napoleon move into Savona and take on Piedmont. At Turin, the 29 combat points for the French forces outnumber the 9 combat points for the enemy by more than 3 to 1. The result is an envelopment which destroys the Italian forces and ends the battle. The Battle of Savona starts with a cannon being drawn for the enemy reserve region thanks to the fog of war result. With no envelopment possible, each side receives 2 battle plans. The French place 3 forces in the approach region and 1 in the reserve region, while all enemy infantry and cavalry arrive in column formation. The French employ sweep inside, which allows them to select a single battle plan each turn. However, the activation roll fails, so it does not activate for this turn. The French instead play the engage battle plan on Garnier's counter, while the enemy's battle plan goes to Deschat's cavalry. A wheel that manages to activate, allowing the cavalry to close 2 regions and then go into line formation. The plan automatically activates and the infantry unit closes 1 region where no French forces are in range, so no battle takes place. 2 more enemy infantry perform default battle plans and advance 1 region, while the cannons execute the cannon battle plan and roll a hit on Garnier's unit, which reduces it. Now the French activates Garnier's engage battle plan and advances into an enemy-occupied region, but fails to shock Deschat and misses with his attack roll. But Deschat is destroyed by Serrier's unit on a fire attack while Macquard advances. No route is possible, so the battle turn marker advances to the fore. A French formation battle plan is placed next to the battle sheet. Enemy units Deschat and Provera get melee and aimed battle plans respectively. Deschat manages to activate his battle plan and advance on Garnier's unit, which destroys him due to shock. And then Deschat manages a single hit on Macquard. Provera fails to activate or hit his target. Brempt and de Vital advance, and the cannon hits Serrier's unit, which flips him to his reduced side. Serrier's advance on Deschat, who is reduced and retreats while Macquard manages a single hit on de Vital. No route is possible, so the battle turn counter is moved to 3. The sweep insight manages to activate this turn and Stengel is the target. He sweeps and manages 4 hits on the enemy, destroying their cannon, de Vital, and Brempt. Stengel returns to the campaign mat. Deschat and Provera fail to activate their battle plans, but Serrier does advance and destroy Deschat thanks to a shock roll. Macquard advances, causing Provera to fail his shock check and retreat by 1 region while being reduced. No route happens, so the battle turn counter is moved to 2. Macquard manages to change formation from line to column and advances, which causes Provera to fail his shock check. This ends the battle with all destroyed enemy forces placed in the reinforcement cup, while destroyed French forces are moved to the side. After the battle, 3 French units from Turin are forced marched to Savona. Macquard is back to full strength, and a French fortification is built in Savona. All remaining enemy forces, which consist of 3 groups, are in Genoa and moved randomly. The first group moves to Lodi, the second to Mantua, and the third heads into Savona, save for 1 force which remains in Genoa. Another battle takes place in Savona with the enemy group. The fog of war check moves a single enemy supply point to the French, but more importantly, the French outnumber the enemy by more than 3-1, so the result is an envelopment which destroys them. With no other battles possible, the enemy resupply step occurs, and the result is that Genoa gets a fortification. Mantua gets a garrison, Milan sees Salice's cavalry, and Klagenfurt has 3 supply points added to the enemy resupply box. Thus ends the first campaign turn. The game will continue until the player meets the requirements for the defeat conditions, victory conditions, or the game runs out of turns. Along the shoreline of the remote island, St. Helena, an aged beyond his years Napoleon Bonaparte stood gazing at his first true friend, the ocean. As he looked across the waves, he must have realized that while he was thousands of miles from his birthplace in Corsica, his life had come full circle. Thank you for watching. Check out our other videos on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel. Plus, you can keep up with the latest news by visiting our Facebook and Twitter pages. And if you want to support the channel, we have a link to our Patreon page below. And I will see you next Wednesday.